Hi, it's Cassie. We are here for a second product showcase, and I'm super excited. So this is going to be every Tuesday night at 8:30. Is it? Am I right about that? Yeah. And so here tonight we're going to talk about 3D embossing folders, and we're going to make a project. So of course we'll also be talking about other techniques as well to make the project, but the main focus is going to be on the embossing folders. So I'll show you a couple different ones, and then we'll make the project. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm going to flip the camera around and get started right away. So here's my messy desk. Oh, okay. My Coke Zero, yep. Here's just a quick little, yeah, total mess. Okay, there you go. You've seen it now. This is just one of my tables down here. So this is my main workstation, and yeah, it definitely needs to be tidied up a bit. But not right now, because we're gonna play and make some fun projects. So here we go. Sorry for a little bit of shaking. Trying to get it straightened out a little bit here and lined up. I think this is going to be good. You can see me pretty well. Okay. Sorry for the shaking. Here we go. Okay, this is good. So then I just need to get my other screen going so I can see if there's any comments from anyone. So I'm super excited. This is so fun, and I'm loving this. And I've got like pages and pages of ideas of projects and products that I want to just review and show you different ways to use and play with. And I hope that when you're feeling up to it or brave, you could ask me questions. We could play together. That's really what I want for this this YouTube live as I go along, is for people to join. And when you have time and say, hey, I really want to try this, and what if you did this to it, or what if you did that, or what would happen, or can you give me some tips on this or that? So I'm really hoping for this to evolve maybe in that way. Maybe it'll go in a whole different direction, but that's what I have visioned for it, at least at this point. So okay, so this is going to be the final card that we're going to make. It's super easy, but look at how beautiful and detailed and textured, and and the color, of course, is gorgeous. This is like my signature color right now. This is another card I made with the same background, different technique. I did some like painting sort of with this. I used Magicals from Lindy's gang, and then covered it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. And then I just have some samples. So this is the oh, what is it called? The luxury cardstock from Crafter's Companion. I am completely in love with this cardstock, and this cardstock alone is going to be a product showcase pretty soon, because it's on my list for sure, because it comes in 3 different finishes and a bunch of different colors, and it's so amazing and beautiful and fun to use. So I just did a quick emboss with a 3D folder, and then I cut it out so you could see. So if I were going to use this in a card, it kind of got bent because it's really thin in the edges, but I would use the foam sheets and cut out this same shape, and then put glue, on the back of this, and then stick it on, and then stick it on like the base of my card, and then put a sentiment or something in the middle. And that would be that. And then this I would probably layer with something else on top of it, maybe the words or whatever, and put that on a fun background. So there's 2 cards here for one, and I just wanted to show you how beautiful and detailed that looks on this kind of paper. Okay, so then this is another version of the background we're going to be doing. It's a little bit different. It's on different paper, and I'm going to talk more about the differences and similarities between these two later. But so that's that. And then the last little sample I did was with this. So this is a gear a folder from Tim Holtz, and this paper is actually silver paper from the Crafter's Companion luxury cardstock as well. It's silver chromy kind of look, and it's also amazing. So, and then I did some walnut stain on top and some stuff like that. So that's that sample. So there's lots of different things you can do, and there are not a ton of 3D embossing folders, but there are more every day, it seems like. So definitely the trend is picking up, I think, and I'm seeing a lot more styles and designs, and some really cool stuff. So I'm just gonna quickly wipe off my Imagine mat here. This awesome mat I love so much. Try to keep it clean, but I'm a messy crafter, so it is what it is. So first I want to show you the couple of the folders that I've been using and playing with a little bit. So this one is I don't know if you can see better if I do this, probably not. Here we go. So this one is this. This is what I cut the purple out of. It's just a really pretty flower and sort of vines and leaves. This is a Tim Holtz one. The brown ones are obviously Tim Holtz, right? He's a brown dude, likes the color brown. And the thing that's different about these, so the other one I'm using here is from Crafter's Companion. So first thing you can see the difference is that the size is different, right? This I think I measured at I think it's 4.5 by 6. Let me just double check really fast because I want to make sure I have the right. No, 4.25. 4.25 by 6.25. It looks like that's the area that you can emboss. So 4.25 by 6.25. Okay, so it would fit the normal size, 4.25 by 5.5 inch card that you're making. So it would cover the whole surface. But then if you're making a bigger card, it's, you couldn't use it for the whole background. This one is a little bit bigger. I believe this is a 5 by 7. So just a little bit bigger. The other main difference that I've noticed is the thickness. The Tim Holtz embossing folders are thicker than the Crafter's Companion embossing folders. So when you run these through your Big Shot or whatever machine you're using, you're going to have a different sandwich for each one. So I'm going to tell you the difference if you're using a Big Shot for the Tim Holtz 3D embossing folders. You're going to use, so here I'm using, show you my machine really quick. When I'm downstairs here in my craft studio here, I'm using just the regular Big Shot, right? Okay. And I am doing, and then I have the regular cutting plates. So you'll have 2 cutting plates. It can be clear or a different color. These happen to be teal. And then the tabbed multi-purpose platform. So it has tab 1 and 2, right? And then no tab, right? Okay, so that comes with your machine. So when you're working with Tim Holtz 3D embossing folders, just the 3D ones, you're going to, let me move this out of the way so I can tell you. Maybe you want to write it down so you know when you're going to go use it, that and you don't get frustrated. Okay. For Tim Holtz 3D embossing folders, you're going to have one tab, the first sandwich tab open, and you're going to only use 1 cutting plate. Okay. So I put the paper, whatever you're going to use. Okay. And then put it on your tab 1. Put your cutting plate over it, run it through, run it back. Okay. And actually you're going to spritz it with water first, but we'll go over all that and we'll actually do one in a minute. But I just want to tell you the differences. Okay. So that's for Tim Holtz. Then if you're using Crafter's Companion 3D embossing folders, you're going to, because it's thinner, you need a little bit extra help. So you're going to have no tabs open. Okay. So totally closed. So you're on tab 2, your embossing folder with the paper in it, and then your cutting plate, and then run it through, run it back. And I always run it twice just to make sure I get a good deep impression. So that's the main difference I found with these 2 embossing folders. They both have great detail and depth, and they both work wonderfully. So this is the other one, the gears that that this was made out of. And this is just obviously a little sample, obviously, but yeah, these gears are so fun. There's a couple other, there's I think 1 or 2 more Tim Holtz ones I have. I don't have a lot of 3D folders at this time, but I want to get more. They're so fun. So this, it's hard to see on these dark folders, but this is like a wood grain. There, you can see it. And then the other one I have is like a machine, like a metal riveted plate or something. Very cool, masculine, very nice. Okay, so those are the ones that I have, and there are plenty more out there, but seems like it's growing and becoming a lot more popular. So I'm going to put these other samples aside that we're not going to be using, and then I'm going to talk about some of the other products that we're going to use tonight. So put this to the side just for a minute. Okay. Actually, what I am going to do is, I changed my mind. I am gonna emboss this and then let it sit on the side to dry for a minute, and then I'll talk about the other products I'm using, and then we'll build our card. Okay, so let's just get to that. Okay, so I've got my Big Shot, and I'm using the Crafter's Companion 3D embossing folder. So I want to have closed tabs and one cutting plate. Okay. And then I'm using watercolor paper for this. You don't have to. You can use any kind of paper you want. You saw that I did the metallic paper here. It's a little bit thinner. I've used Nina Solar White. I mean, you can use anything really, right? The key is to spritz it with water. So I'm going to spritz it just so it's covered. It doesn't need to be soaking wet, but you just want to make sure it's covered. Whoops. So that you're loosening up the fibers a little bit so they don't rip when you're putting it through, because this does have really deep spots, because that's what gives it that 3D awesome look. Okay, so this is a 5x5 piece of paper, because we're going to make a 5.5 inch by 5.5 inch card, but this is only 5x7 total, so it doesn't quite cover my whole paper, which is okay. I'm going to line it up where I want it, and then we'll just cut off the edges after and use the part that we want to use. Okay, so there, I like this big flower and I like that flower down there, but I think I want actually just a little bit more, but not all of it, right? Okay, here, you'll see what I mean in a second. Okay, so there we go. So I've got most of that flower and most of that flower, and then I've got this really pretty design coming through here that really leads your eye around the piece. So that is important to me to keep that as well. Okay, so we're good. So now we've spritzed it with water. We have it placed where we want it. It's Crafter's Companion, so we have no tabs out, and we've got one cutting plate. Okay, and now we're going to run it through the Big Shot. I'm going to move stuff out of the way. Small space to work here. Okay, run it through the Big Shot, forward, and then just bring it back toward you. Okay, so one way then the other, and that's it. You're done. It's going to be beautiful. So I'm going to put this aside so it's out of the way, and now we will put it aside. I'll talk about other supplies I'm using, and then when it's dry, we'll build our card. So look at this. I want you to see this detail. Look at how deep it is. I mean, this leaf right here too. I wish you could touch this. Let me see how close I can get. Look at that. You can see the shadows. Look at the depth, right? It's so pretty. Oh my gosh, look at that. And all of the little detail and all the little veins in the leaves and the stems. I mean, it's really, really beautiful. So fun to play with too. So, okay, so we're gonna let that dry for just a minute, and let me tell you about the other supplies I'm using and what I love. So this stamp set came from Unity Stamp Company. If you're not familiar with them, you should definitely check them out. They have wonderful stamps, and they're a family-owned company, and they cook all the rubber and make the stamps to order. So when you place your order, they make the set and then send it out to you, and they cut it all out, and it comes just like this, and it's got, the paper backing, and then you can just put it on cling mount. On a acrylic block. Whatever you have, I just have the flat ones, and they're wonderful. They last forever and ever. That's good red rubber. So this is a really great product. And the designer, so the owner of Unity Stamp Company is Angela, and she works with different artists to create their own lines of stamps, and then she sells them on her site. And so Graciele is, she has her own website and her own blog and everything that she sells independently, but she also designs for Unity Stamp Company, and her art is amazing. I just bought a digital paper and stamp set from her, and it's so beautiful. The color's amazing. So that's also going to be another, I mean, I've got a long list. There's so many great companies and so many great products. So, but that is definitely, she's going to be featured in another one using all digital products that I print and make a project out of, just to show you that it's really easy to do, and then you just have files on your computer instead of, you know, rubber that you have to house somewhere. They're both great, and they both have their pros and cons, right? Just like anything. So just I just want to help you be more aware of all of your options so you can pick what's best for you. So this set from Graciele Design is called You Matter, Start Loving Yourself, and it's got really great sayings. I love the font. I love the sort of handwritten look along with the typed sentiments, and I really love this flower here. It's really pretty, and it's a pretty good size too. I didn't use the flower, you know, on this project, but look at how big that is. So anyway, I won't go on about this, but I do really love Unity and Graciele, and they're both great. So definitely check them out. I'm going to tell you which sentiment we're using. Here we go. So this is all we're using from this set is the sentiment. It says, no matter what you do, don't let go of your dreams. So that's what we're using, and I think that's pretty great. So there's the stamp set, okay. Then we're going to be using Finiver's Art Alchemy Impasto white paint. This is heavy body acrylic paint. It dries matte and it's beautiful, and it comes in many, many different colors. We're just using Snow White because we are going to, so we're going to color this with a color and then dry it, and then we're going to dry brush some white over top just to bring some of that detail back out in the end. So that's what we're using for that. So then the base, like we have here, is Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus Fine Art Watercolor. So it comes in bottles like this, and I think smaller bottles as well. So you can get different sizes based on, you know, how much you use and your budget and all that. This is the pack that I got. I have had this a while, and it really lasts a long time. You can use it for a really long time. So this is, I think, I don't remember if, I think this might be set number 1 because it looks like it's like primary colors, but you just give them a good shake. The container's really nice because you can stand it up, right? You can stand them all up. You can use that little well, and then you can lay them down and see all the colors and store them this way. So it's a really nice case. Great, great product. Very highly pigmented, and I love it. And this particular color we're using is 5H quinacridone magenta, which magenta is like, I think it's my favorite color at the moment, so I'm using it everywhere. Okay, next up is Goosebumps Shimmer Texture Spray. We're going to be painting it on the top. So if you look at my sample, see how shiny and that little bit of shimmer and glitter? That's this. And we're going to brush it on at the end. And it's amazing. And you can also spray it on and get, you know, like splattered effect, and it's dimensional and it's glossy and great. We're going to use some On Point glue with these Simon Says Stamp silver lining sequins. They're like confetti because they don't have the hole in the middle. So that's just going to be a nice finishing touch. And then for the sentiment, we're working on vellum, and I'm going to stamp on with VersaFine Clair in Nocturne, which is the best black ink, period, end of story. You definitely need to have this ink pad in your stash, and you need to have it on your desk all the time because it's amazing. The color is rich and gorgeous and just like a deep, beautiful black, but also VersaFine Clair has a lot of really amazing qualities. Another product showcase that will be coming up. And then I've got Imagine's black embossing powder to give it a little shine and dimension, and then just some black string there. So that's it. That's what we're doing. This should be dry enough to go on to the next step. I'm going to give it a quick zap because it's the tiniest bit damp, but we'll keep moving right along. Okay. So you can totally paint on this and spray on it and do whatever on this mat and then wipe it up and it cleans up beautifully. This is a really great mat. I forgot to mention it, but so it's blank on one side and gridded on the other, and this is their new Imagine's new mat for this year. It's super great, and I love the fact that it's gray so that it's a nice neutral base to work off of. But I'm kind of lazy, and I try to keep it neat. So I always get like a scrap paper to get messy because I don't want to have to clean my mat as much. So that's why I'm using this. But just so you know, the mat works great for all of this. No problem. Okay, I'm working on watercolor paper. So it absorbs pigments differently than, let's say, if you were using Nina Solar White or Hammermill or one of those other just standard cardstock papers. Okay, if you were using those, that's what this is. This is Nina Solar White, 110 pound, or I think 110 or 120. It's the thick one. This is what I used here, and I gessoed on top of it first because you can see where I didn't gesso. Okay, and I did this on purpose so that you could see the difference. So I'm going to come in a little close, and you can see where I gessoed all in the middle here, that that it's got that nice white underneath, and the pigment moved around, and it's lighter in some areas, darker in others. And then in the edges where I didn't gesso, that pigment just soaked right in and didn't move. And you can see even there, it's hard to tell, but like one area had a little bit more pigment than another. And even if I spritz this with water, it's not going to move the way this does. Okay, so the reason that we gesso is to make sure that your pigment's going to move around the way it needs to. Okay, and that you're going to get good, even, nice coverage on all surfaces. But we're working on watercolor paper, and it behaves a little differently than regular paper. So we don't need to gesso this, okay? So that's the main difference here. You could gesso it, and it would do the same thing on the gessoed surface, but you don't need to, and I'm going to show you right now, okay? Okay, so just have a paintbrush. Let me, real quick, I just want to give this a shake. I didn't do that before. I want to make sure all that pigment is really suspended in there. So give that a good shake. Okay, and this does have a dropper in it, right? So if you wanted to drop the pigment on there, you could do that, or into a well if you're, just for easier application. But we don't need that today. Okay, I'm just going to dip. Can you still see? Yes, you can. I'm going to dip my paintbrush right in, and I'm just going to start coloring. Oh my goodness. This is got to be the best color on the planet. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Do you ever get like does your heart stop a little when you see a color that just is stunning and striking to you? That's what happens to me, and I can't help it. I love this color so much. It's just gorgeous. Okay, here we go. So I'm just covering the whole paper. And then when we're done, well, I'll show you in a second here. Let me just finish. I don't want any white spots. Okay. All right. And so now before it starts to dry, I'm going to cover this up just to keep it nice. Before this starts to dry, I'm just going to take a water gun and spritz it. Okay. Now you see how it's like all the same tone and there's no real dimension. Not really anyway. When we spritz it with water, we let those pigments sort of run down into the valleys and collect in those areas, so that area gets darker, more highly pigmented, and then the areas on top where it's lighter, where there's the mountain or the peak, the color's running off, so it's going to be a little bit brighter. So that's what's happening here, and it gives it this great, fantastic dimension. Okay, so we're going to hit this with a gun just to dry it a little bit. Okay. All right, I'm going to let this sit aside and finish drying, and we're going to work on the next piece of this, just in the interest of moving along. Okay. So then we have a piece of vellum. It's 1 1/4 inch wide and 8 1/2 inch long. And we're going to stamp our sentiment and emboss it. Okay, so let me get a piece of paper underneath. We'll just use this. Okay, and get my sentiment. It's already on my acrylic block. Okay, and I'm using that VersaFine Clair and Nocturne. You'll see how beautiful this black is. It's just gorgeous. Okay. All right. Line it up. I don't want it to be centered. It's going to be like off-centered a little bit. So put it there. Okay. Here we go. It's hard. Oh, here, I'll bring it up this way. It's kind of hard to tell, obviously, on camera. Look at that. There you go. It's crisp and it's beautiful. And like I said, there are a lot of amazing properties. When you use this on certain types of quality cardstock, not vellum, but I mean, it's going to work here. But if you stamp with the VersaFine Clair on quality cardstock, you can get near full coverage of putting the embossing powder on it up to, I would say, 4 or 5 minutes after you've stamped it. So you stamp it, you do something else, you wait a few minutes, you come back, you put your embossing powder on, you think, oh, there's no way, it's dry, it's not going to stick. It sticks. It sticks. It's amazing. And I will do demos and a product showcase on that because it's really amazing. And you can use it with Copics, you can use it with watercolor painting techniques, you can do lots of stuff with it. So definitely worth having. There's lots of beautiful colors. Anyway, that's another show. Okay, so now we have this. So now we're just going to hit it with the gun, with the heat gun. So, okay, another thing, in case you haven't seen any of my other videos, I have 2 heat guns that I use. I have the Ranger Heat It Craft Tool for general, mixed media heating up, like the background that we're working on. It gives you a good overall general heat and allows you to dry things like that. But if you're going to dry embossing powder, I recommend this Wagner gun. It works very well. It's concentrated heat and it gets the job done quickly without warping your paper too much. As long as you're moving it around, and obviously it also depends on what paper you're using, but it's a very good tool. There we go. There we go. Look at that. So pretty. I love that black. Okay, so that piece is done. And then to clean my stamps, I just use microfiber cloth and just wipe them down. And that works really well. And that's all you have to do there. Okay, so then the next step, we need to get back to our background. So I'm going to keep drying this and get it all dried up, and then we'll move on. So the next thing we're going to do, if you look at my sample, you can look at this while I'm drying. Just a sec. Let me see if I can do this two-handed. Here we go. You can see that it's got the white on the top, and then in the valleys there it's nice and dark, right? Deep magenta. That is because what we're going to do next. We're going to use this impasto paint, and we are going to dry brush it on our card base here. Okay. I'm going to pull some of this up. It's going to take a while to dry otherwise, and it's still going to be really, I mean, look at all this pigment in here. These Hydrus watercolor paints are so beautiful. Another thing that I learned, gosh, along the way somewhere, and I'm not sure, oh no, I do know. It was Marta Lepkowska from Marami Small Art, she keeps her baby wipes, and they have all this great pigment on them. And like I have this one over here, it's got purple and stuff. She keeps them, gets them all inky, right? And gets all the pretty colors on them, and then lets them dry and flatten out. And then she made like flowers out of them and different things and used them in projects, and it was really pretty. Any way to reuse materials and not throw things away, I'm all over that. I love upcycling and reusing packaging and all sorts of stuff like that. So I just thought that was a really good idea. Okay. I think we were just about ready. Man, that is so pretty. I love all the tone and variation in the color there. Just helps add more depth. Okay, so now I'm using this brush. This is a Dina Wakley brush from a few years ago, but it's kind of hard in the middle because I'm sure I forgot to clean it or something. But it's got a nice like flat rough top, which is good for dry brushing. Oh, hey Kara, how are you? Thank you for hanging out and crafting with me. Okay, so I like to use this brush because it's got a good flat rough top, and you can just lightly brush over and get a good dry brush technique on it. So I'm going to move some of these other things out of the way, and I'm using a top of an Altoid tin. I'm going to actually make something out of this, but this is what I was using the other night, so I'm going to keep going with that. Okay, so I've got some impasto paint and dry brush, no water at all. So I'm going to just thin it out here, okay? And there's going to be too much on your brush at first, and I just use my palm of my hand and I get most of it off, okay? And then, but you can use whatever. Choose whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, now we're just going to lightly go over the top of this to bring out some of the detail, okay? Do you see on this flower already some of the veins and the petals are coming out? It's very subtle, and you want to build on it. It's not like an all-at-once kind of thing, okay? It's very subtle, and you just take it a little bit at a time, all right? Thank you. I'm excited to make this. I'm excited to work with 3D embossing folders. Have you worked with 3D embossing folders, and what has been your experience? You like them or not, or have you had good luck with them? I would love to know what other people think about them and about this project, and what other, if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to demonstrate in the future, let me know. Okay, so I'm just going over, and sometimes you have a lot of white and sometimes you have a little bit. That's okay. If you have more than you want, you can wipe it off with your finger. There's no wrong answer here. It's just about your preference and, making it look nice for you. Okay. And when you feel like you're not getting enough, then, oh, you haven't used them yet. Yeah. Yeah, I just have a couple of different ones I showed in the beginning, but they're really fun, and they have so much detail and there's so much depth. They're just kind of addictive. But there's so much out there too, right? It's hard to use everything. Okay, so here we go. This flower is a little more recessed, so it's a little bit harder to get texture out of. And sometimes too, now I like to just go one way. So I don't want to like be having my brush strokes go this way and then turn it sideways and go that way. Sometimes you want that if you want like a crosshatch look. But if I'm just trying to get some detail out, I want to go the same direction. Whether it's vertical or horizontal, that's up to you, but I go the same direction for the whole piece, for the whole card. Okay. So see how the little berries and the veins and stuff are starting to come out more and pop out? That's what we want here, okay? And so you don't want a lot of white paint because then you'll get a lot of blotchiness. You just want enough. Here we go. Ooh, this is looking good. Especially when you have that really dark magenta color in the valley. This white really, really makes that stand out even more. It almost looks like it's rubbed on. I don't know how to explain it. I'll give you another close-up here in a minute, especially with this one little flower I just did. Oh, it's so pretty. But the most important thing for this process is to never get your brush wet. I don't care, just for the whole thing, keep it dry. Keep it dry, keep it dry. And when you feel like, especially when you have these lower recess areas where you don't have a lot of depth to grab onto, then you don't want as much paint in that area, because then it's going to be more goopy. And it's not going to sit on top as nicely, if that makes sense. I don't know. Okay, we're getting close here. We're almost done. And then another thing I like to do is just kind of pause every now and then, take a look, you know, see where I'm missing a spot. Or if there's not enough definition or something, and then come back, you know, go back over it or whatever. So here we go. Let's take a look real quick. So look at this right here, these little flowers. Look at how much detail is in there. And that's mostly flat too. But the drier the brush, the better you're going to get in those flat areas. And it's going to just bring out the detail and not be overpowering. Okay. All right, I want a little bit more up here. You see that's a little bit, you can see more of the brush stroke than you are the detail of the, yeah, that's okay. And some of that is nice too. It makes it look kind of scratched and distressed a little bit. It's pretty cool. Okay, I think we're just about good. I'm just gonna go over it one more time, make sure I didn't miss anything. This is probably the longest part, just because you gotta take your time, go over it a few times until you have the depth that you want. But it sure is a great way to get out all that detail. Oh yeah, that's pretty. Okay. All right, I think I'm good. Okay, that looks good to me. So now we can, I'm going to keep this out because we're going to put one more coat of something over this whole thing. I'm going to wipe my hand really quick. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, the next step is going to be to just give it a quick dry. It's mostly dry already because we were using very little paint with a dry brush, so it doesn't, it's not really wet, but I'm just letting it sort of set in a little more, okay? All right, and then we're gonna take the Goosebumps, and this is the shimmer one, so look at all that shimmer in the bottom there. So I have to give it a good shake. I'm gonna do that off camera so I don't, so it's not annoying. And then I'm giving it a really good shake, and then I'm gonna use a paintbrush and just brush it on. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to the paintbrush I used to put the magenta on. Okay, and it's wet, and that's okay. All right. Ugh, hold on one second. Ugh, there we go. Okay, so I've given it a good shake. And this Goosebumps, okay, so see right now, it's pretty matte, and it's really beautiful like this. I mean, you could leave it like this and it would be gorgeous, but I love shimmer and I love this Goosebumps gloss, so I just have to use it. And it looks really nice with the magenta, and it helps to bring out some more of the detail too, I think. So I'm just getting that paintbrush down in the bottom there, and some of that shimmer that just really wanted to hang out at the bottom and not mix up, so we get some good sparkle. Okay, so I'm just gonna paint it on like I did the magenta. Look at already, OMG. It's bringing out that white, it's bringing out the depths of that magenta and all the beautiful detail. So here we go. You don't need a ton either. This does go a long way. I tend to over pour on here because I get excited. So then just dry your brush a little bit and then wipe away where you have too much. That's what I do. If you get a little too much on there, just wipe it away. Especially like in between those berries, it can collect a little bit. Okay, so then I really want, in case you can see any brush strokes, I want them all going the same way for this one. So I'm just going to give it a good once over. Turn them back the right way. Oh yeah, this really finishes it quite beautifully. And that's it. That is it for the Goosebumps. Okay, I'm going to give you a close-up here. I'm going to stand up so I can show you. So pretty. Thank you so much. I think it's really gorgeous. Look at that. Look at the shimmer and look at how it just brings more of that detail out. It feels like, it really does feel 3D. Anyway, okay, let's move on. So this is we're gonna dry this real quick, and then we're just gonna put the card together and we'll be all done. So if we recap, when you're using 3D embossing folders, different brands have different thicknesses of the folders, so you want to pay attention to that and practice. Just get a scrap piece of paper and practice your sandwich, right? So for this one, we use the Crafter's Companion embossing folder, 3D embossing folder, and it was a little bit thinner than, let's say, Tim Holtz embossing folders. Okay, so for that one, the sandwich was closed tabs completely with just one cutting plate on top. Okay, and then for the Tim Holtz ones, it was one tab open, the first tab open, with still one cutting plate. Okay, so you just got to play around and figure out which sandwich works for you. And that's if you're using a Big Shot. If you have some other machine, you know, Gemini or whatever else you're using, then you definitely are going to have to play with it and figure it out. But it will work. It definitely will work. Okay, this is pretty dry. It's a tiny bit tacky, but we can move on. All right, so the next step for me is going to be to put the vellum. Where to go? We're going to put, so one thing I've been doing with vellum lately, instead of trying to figure out how I can adhere it to my card base without seeing the adhesive, is just to leave flaps on the end and wrap it around and glue it on the back, so then you don't have to deal with that, and that works pretty well. So first I'm going to put some tear tape, or let's see what I can find here. Here we go. So I've got some tear tape left here. This is from Imagine. It works really well. It's when I have nails, it does anyway. There we go. It tears off easily, and we'll go this way. And it sticks really well too. It's very sticky. It doesn't go anywhere. So I like to use it. You can see I'm almost out of it. And it's reasonably priced too. I mean, I guess it's probably the same as most of them out there, but I really like using it. Okay. And now I can't do it because I don't have any nails. That's annoying. Okay, other side. You just have to be able to burnish it a little bit, you know, and get that corner up. And I currently have no nails, so makes it a little bit tricky. Okay, come on, Cassie. You can do it. Here we go. All right, so then I'm going to line it up on the front. I want it to be a little off-centered. I'm going to put some of those sequins there, and I'm going to put string below it, so I don't want it to be too far down on the page. So those are the things I'm considering right now while I'm putting this on, and then I'm just going to make sure it's nice and straight and tight, right? Since I'm doing this technique, I want to make sure that it's nice and tight. Okay, there we go. It's not straight. That's great. We can always fix that. That's okay. All right, let me straighten it out here a little bit. It was like really not straight, or I would have just left it. Okay, here we go. That's better. I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to cards. I think it's good enough, but sometimes it's just a little too off. Here we go. All right. So then we're going to put, I'm going to put another piece of, actually I'm going to use glue dots. I like to use glue dots when I'm wrapping string or something around. It's a really quick and easy way to have a stop and starting point. So I just put one in the middle of wherever on the card I'm going to put it. And then I find my beginning, unravel a little bit. I use string a lot and I wrap it around a good odd number of times. It just, I don't know, it adds some good leading lines and a little bit of extra interest. So I use it most of the time. Okay, so here, so I put that glue dot on there and stuck the tail to it. And then I'm just going to wrap it around 3 times. Okay. And we'll go like that. And then make sure it's nice and tight, and then just hit it, the glue dot on the other side, and cut the end off, and then you're done. And it's really easy, and it's not going anywhere. And it's already tight and good, you know, and lined up. So that's a quick little tip there. And then we're going to stick this all down to black cardstock base, which I've already cut out. This is 5.5 by 5.5, just regular black cardstock from, geez, where did I get it? Oh, I got it from Joann Fabric. It's their Park Lane or Park Lake, I think it's Park Lane collection. They had a really good sale for like a lot of paper. So I got a bunch of black and craft and white and stuff. I think it's probably 60 or 80 pounds. It's not super thick, but it's really good for matting your focal point and for bases and things like that. So that's what I mainly use it for. All right, that first one came off nice. There we go. Can't wait to have my nails back. I got acrylic nails for Creativation because my nails were not growing well this winter. And I thought, oh, they'll be pretty. And I've never had acrylic nails before. And I just took them off the other day. And you see I still have this one because my nails ripped underneath this. And I will never, ever, ever for the rest of my life get acrylic nails. It was not a good experience taking them off. So that's just me. Anyway, so that's why I have no nails right now. I'm waiting for them to grow back. Okay, so now we're just going to center this on that nice black card base. Okay, here we go. And then we're going to do the same thing here and put it on. So here's my white card base, okay? I buy these. I'm going to show you real quick. This is, I think, that same company. Let me check. Yeah, Park Lane is called. Park Lane. And this is from, I think it's a Joann's line. I'm pretty sure it is. Anyway, it's 50 cards and 50 envelopes. And I think I paid like $5 for the whole thing. And they're already cut and scored and ready to go. So I don't have to do that. And it comes with the envelope. So if I'm going to mail it to somebody, I'm ready to go. And they have white and craft and all different kinds of colors. And I love them and I use them a lot. And I've been buying the square 5.5 inch size lately because it's really fun to use. And you know, I've historically made 4.25 by 5.5 inch cards because that's just what I learned and what most, you know, a lot of people make. And they're great and I love them, but there's something about the square format and having a little bit more real estate to work on that is really fun. So if you haven't tried it, I recommend trying just a different format than you've used already. You know, if you're used to doing square, then try a tall, thin one. Or, you know, if you're used to doing the normal 4.25 by 5.5, then try this square size. Go find some pre-cut card bases. Make your card and then stick it to the base, and it's super easy and fun and a really good time saver. So anyway, there we go. So now I've stuck it down there. Now all I have to do is add a couple sequins and we are done with our card. Now if you're just making this card and not talking about it and showing all the techniques and stuff, you could totally make this in like 10 or 15 minutes, you know, and you could have a really nice card, and you could even mass produce something like this, you know, and it would look like you spent a lot more time than you did. And that's part of what I love about these 3D embossing folders, because they're so rich and so full of depth and beauty that you really get a lot for, you know, big bang for your buck, I guess is what it is. And it makes it look like you did a lot more work than you actually did, which I like. Okay, so I'm using this On Point glue from Imagine. It's got a needle tip point and it has the needle tip that goes into it in the cap so that you never clog. And it's totally amazing. This is wonderful for sequins or for paper to paper applications. I really like it. It dries fast. It's very sticky. And so I definitely recommend having this in your stash also. And if you can get that needle point back in there, there we go. Screws back on and you're good to go. And this lasts forever. I mean, I use this all the time and I think I'm right down to here. So it'll last forever. So there it is. Add a couple sequins just to give it a little bling. And there's our final card. Very cool, very pretty. So here's the other sample with the same background, but I did a different technique. This one I used Lindy's Magicals, and I forgot to talk about it before. But so this I used Nina Solar White cardstock, and I gessoed the base, and then I ran it through the embossing folder, same embossing folder, right? And then for the coloring, I did the yellow first, and it was the pineapple, Paradise Pineapple or something like that from Lindy's Magicals, the little pots of pigment. And then I used a green and a pink, 2 shades of pink, and then I did the water technique to kind of blend it out a little bit. Dried it. I did the Goosebumps shimmer over the top as well. But then I also took some Nuvo drops in Ivory Seashell, and I just went over some of those dots in the end and did that. So it's slightly different technique, different colors, but you know, same background or same, yeah, embossing folder, but you have totally different cards. So there you go. I mean, there's two samples you can do. And then for anybody that missed in the beginning, here's Tim Holtz gears, and I used walnut ink spray and just sprayed it over the top and let it dry, but you could use really any kind of spray that would work. And this is over like a chromy metal paper. So there we are. There are the 3D embossing folders. I hope that you learned something and maybe found some inspiration. And if you make anything with 3D embossing folders, please share it on and tag me on Instagram and tag the it's Cassie's Parlor Product Showcase. Okay, it's a hashtag, and I will add it to the description in this video and to my blog post about this video. Cassie's Parlor, parlor with a U, product showcase. Okay, and again, I will put it in writing so you don't have to remember it. But if you make anything from any of the product showcases that I do, I would love to see what they are. Okay, so just hashtag it so I can check it out.